Hello and welcome back to the channel. In the last video, I showed you everything about the primary tools, and this is a continuation from the last video. If you've not seen the previous video, I would highly recommend that you watch that before you watch this one. In case we haven't met, my name is Tisent. I'm a cinematographer and a colorist. Most importantly, I am a lazy filmmaker. Okay, now so we're going to jump into the secondary tools in DaVinci Resolve, and these are the tools that, for me, I believe these are the tools that you kind of need to now master to start creating looks, and these are the tools that you can use to like become a tastemaker. So for us to get these shots going and for you to see what's going on, let me quickly jump into the primary color wheels and kind of bring these shots to like how it should look. This is not the ideal way I would do it, but for the sake of tutorials, I would use this and not just bother with color management. Ideally, I would do color management for this. So I'm just going to bring this guy to like, let me bring it to a decent look. Okay, so restart. This is me. I'll call it manual color management. I'm bringing things to what it should look like by eye, which is less accurate than proper color management. If you guys want to see how I color manage, there's a color management video on my channel. I think you should watch that. I know that the topic of color management is scary to most people. It took me a while to figure it out, but the year I did, it was over. I just started doing it like a pro, but it's quite easy. It's just that a lot of people that teach these things complicate things with a lot of technical jargons, and it's just to make you like feel like, yeah, you can do it, or just to make you feel. Sometimes people say a lot of things to make it sound more difficult than it really is, but in reality, it's not difficult at all. Okay, so let's say this is our shot, and let's just say that this is well converted from the format, and now we want to like start developing looks. So I will show you how this works. So this is the first one is called the curves, and you have a lot of curves there. You have curves custom, you have a custom curve, hue versus hue, hue versus saturation, hue versus luminance, hue versus luminance versus saturation, sat versus sat, and sat versus lum. So let's start with this one. This is the curves, and I will give you just a rough idea. So anything around here is your midtones. Anything down here is your shadows. Anything up here is your highlights. Done. Again, there's a dedicated video on my channel teaching you everything about curves. So let's say we want to raise our midtones. We raise it here. Let's say we want to darken our shadows. Darken it here. Let's say we want to bring our highlights up. Command Z. Bring our highlights up. You can see blown out. Let's bring it down to protect. You can see as I'm bringing it down, the brightest point of the shot is getting some detail back. Okay, don't want to do too much, so let's just do that. And what we have just done is we've given our shots some contrast. See, it's called a contrast curve. See the difference? So before, see how flat it was, nothing was jumping out, and after, so I've stretched out my shot. This is the same thing as using the contrast knob. I'm going to create another node and show you what would happen if I use the other contrast. So let's disable this one, and then let's use this contrast. Okay, so push this contrast up, and let's say we change the pivots. Okay, we're going to save this one. All right, disable it and come to this one. Now let's compare both of them. So I'm going to do a wipe. This is one, this is the other one. This is the one we did with the contrast curve. Okay, this is the contrast curve one. Let me go to full view. This is with the contrast curve. This that I'm pulling up, this is the one with the contrast wheel. See, I can get them to match if I want to. So this is not a matter of one is better than the other one. I can actually get it to match if I want to. So what I can do is to increase this contrast and, just work on my pivots. Okay, now if I want to compare both of them, grab still and come to this other one. Then let's show that still. Let's compare. This is the one with the contrast curves. This is the one I just created now with the contrast tool. Can you see it's similar? One is darker than one, of course. I'm not trying to get a full match, but you can see that it's still contrast. It's just I use a different tool to achieve the contrast. Okay. If I want to keep finessing, I will finesse one to become, as detailed as the other one. So that's what you can do with dark curves. You can basically draw your contrast and, draw it exactly how you want. I think at this point now, you'll probably be similar. Yep, it's more similar now. See? I'm swiping up and down. And it's almost just like there's no difference, but you can see the difference. If you look at where the glove is, you can see me swinging around. And so you can see the contrast is very similar, but I just used a different tool. I used this contrast. The other one, I used the curves. That's what this does. Also, there are other things you can do with it. If you can decide to say, let me say I want just the green curve and I want to push green into my highlights. This is where you start to build looks, for example. So now I've pushed green into my highlights, but I'm bringing it down from my midtones. So I don't want my midtones to be like that green. I'm not going to show you guys because I'm sure you guys are like, oh, okay, this is how to color grade. I'm not trying to like jump into color grading now. Don't get distracted. I'm just showing you what happens with the wheels. So because right now, all I'm doing is I'm manipulating the curve. This is a very horrible curve, by the way. I'm manipulating the curves, and I'm showing you what happens when you manipulate the curves and how you can push colors with the curves. This curves is one of my most used tool. I use it to like create looks like every other time because it's very efficient. And if you understand curves, which sometimes can be tricky, but once you understand it, there's no look you can create. Okay. All right, let's move on. So you can do that with another color by just detaching it and affecting that color alone. But when you click it and link it back, so this is YRGB. This Y basically represents your contrast, your luminosity, your brightness and darkness in layman terms. Okay, we're moving on now. Let's move on to the next node. And we still have more curves to power through. So this next one is hue versus hue. Hue basically means color. So so the way you understand this curve is think of the first and the second word. The first word is hue versus hue. So the second word is going to affect the first one. Simple. So I want to affect the color of my color because it's hue versus hue. So what it means technically is I want to affect my red. I want to change the color of my red. So if I click this red, it will give me points on this. Then I can push it. So anything red in that shot will be affected. Okay, I can push it down. It becomes, some different level of red. I can say I want to affect my blue. Click blue. And then if I move it up, my blue starts to become that color. Again, this is you creating looks. This is how people create looks. All those fancy looks that you see. This is how those things are kind of built. They're built mildly, but this is how you kind of do them. Because see what we had before. See what we have now. We've created a shift in the color. And this is just color grading. So this is why these are called secondary tools. You don't want to jump here and start a shot that's not been color corrected. So let me remove these nodes where I corrected the shots. Imagine pushing these things without doing this first part. You won't get your shots looking good. So you have to kind of color correct your shot. Make sure your shot looks decently okay before you start building looks on top of it. If not, you're almost going to be working in vain. That's the best way to say it. You're going to be working in vain. You can also click on the color you want. So let's say you can click on the color. So let's say you want to change this yellow. If you click on the yellow, you can see it gave me a point. Let me click on the green. If I click on the green, let me reset it. If I click on the red, you see it gives me a point of where that color is on this graph. And I can go and clean it up or change whatever I want to change. So let's move on quickly. So that's hue versus hue. The next one is hue versus saturation. So basically what we're affecting is the saturation of the color, just the way I said. The first and the second thing. The second thing is affecting the first thing. So we have saturation of the first, which is the hue. So what that means technically is I want to affect saturation of my color. So if I click blue and I pull it down, everything blue will be desaturated. If If I pull it up, everything blue will be highly saturated. And I hope that you understand that if I do that with the reds, the same thing will happen. Okay, let's move on. Hue versus luminance, the same thing. Click my reds, and if I push my reds down, okay, all my reds will get dark. Push it up, anything red in my shot will get bright. Same thing with the blues. These are the obvious colors in the shot, so that's why I'm using it. See, my blues became brighter, my blues became darker. All right, let's move on. Lume versus saturation. Good. Starts to become more interesting. We want to affect the saturation of the luminance. What that means is we want to affect either the bright points of the shot or the dark points of the shot. So if I come here and I take this part, you can see the gradient is from dark to bright. It just makes it easier for you to see. So if I raise this part, everything that is bright in the shot gets saturated more. It's almost like what Color Boost does, but this one you're the one telling it to do it. So everything that is bright, so like all my whites, saturate it. If I want to do the exact opposite, I'll bring it down and say everything that is bright, desaturate it. And you guys can see now, I've lost color in the bright points of this shot. And this is what you can use for the clean white look. Like I made a video about it, and you can see that on my channel also. This is how you can achieve that clean white look. Let's say you don't want this to, because see the way it cleans up, or it's just going diagonally down. That means that some of your mid-tone also, all the things around there are also like getting desaturated. And if you don't want that, you can put a point and raise that part up. So what you are saying is you're just rolling it off. It's like you're rolling after your mid-tones, they can now start to get saturated, So that's one thing you can do. You can also bring it down to taste. You can bring it closer to your darks. You can bring it up as much as you want. And you can do the same exact thing for your blacks. You can see the dark points of the shots have lost color. This might be the look you're going for. Again, I don't want my mid-tones to be affected. I can bring my mid-tones back up. And you'll be surprised that I do this in especially film grades. And I'll tell you why. So in film grades, you don't want your dark colors to be saturated. You don't want them to look like it's video file. Like you don't want it to look like a video film. You want it to look filmic. And filmic means that your colors are clean. So sometimes I go and I desaturate my shadows. Let me show you the difference. See before, see how everything looks, just bright and all over the place. See the black just looking like it has colors inside it. And after, see how the black looks like black. See before, the black has like some blue, purple, and after. See? Before and after. Before and after. So that's what you can do sometimes to create that filmic look. You can see how people build those kind of looks that you love now. The next one is sat versus saturation. So what this one is saying is you're going to saturate the saturation of the shots. So if you use the same principle we used before, what this is basically saying is I'm going to look at the most saturated part of the shots, which is obviously this part, and I will saturate it or desaturate it depending on where I go to. So if I push it up like this, the most saturated part of this shot is these reds and blues. And if you look at what I have done, if I undo it, it has basically gone only to those places to affect those places. Okay? See? Before and after. It didn't touch the skin. Before and after. Because the skin is not the most saturated part of the shots. But this guy's skin is saturated, so he affected it. But my guy, it didn't touch my guy because my guy's skin is not very saturated naturally. Okay? Because it's blessed and it's melanated. Alright? So you can see. Now, so it's saturating desaturated shots. This is something that you might have to like play back and write down in your book or something and say to yourself to understand, but you would understand it eventually. So let's say we want to do the other part of it. So sat versus sat. So if you come to this side and you raise it up, what you are saying is the least saturated part of my shot, I'm saturating it now, which is right now this part of the shot. And finally is skin. So if I want to do that in reverse, I bring it down, see what happened. This is actually even easier to see. You can see with this that the parts that got desaturated are the parts that are least saturated in the shot. And it kept the parts that are saturated. write it down and transcribe what I just said. Write it down and read it to yourself, and you would understand. So what I've done now is I've desaturated using this least saturated part of the shots. You might not find yourself using this commonly, but I use it. But just so you know, that's what that does. So let's move on. The last one is sat versus luminance. By now, you should kind of have an idea of how this works. So again, we want to affect the luminance, which is brightness, of the saturation. So the least saturated part of the shot, I want to affect its brightness. And what's the least saturation part? Sorry, and what's the least saturated part of the shots? So what's the most saturated part of the shots? So what basically this is doing is the most saturated part of the shots, which is here, I want to affect its brightness. So if I push this up, you can see that my shot has become very bright. If I push it down, my shot's luminance has gone down. Okay? Do the reverse. This now at this point, and I know it's confusing because we're expecting like what is here to be like the list because it's white. However, it's not. Think of it as left to right. Here is most. Here is least. So here is like the least saturated part. I want to bring it up. And you can see now it has brightened the least saturated part of the shot. Okay, let's move on before you lose your minds. Okay, we're making progress, so let's keep going. The next tool we're talking about is the color slice, and this tool is not very new, but it's fairly new. It wasn't there like maybe 4 years ago or something. I think it just came out like 2 years ago. I'm not very sure now. This is another secondary tool that you can use to like, let me keep this contrast. This is another secondary tool that you can use to like create, looks, and you really use to like sharpen your grade. So the one that I use the most is this skin one, because this just targets your skin. So if you push it here, you can see like the skin node is affected, and you can use this to like affect the luminance of the skin. Here, saturation of the skin, basically, right? This shot again is not well corrected. I didn't do the color management properly, so I'm just using this to show you what's going on. If you want to affect the reds, also the same thing. See the luminance of the reds. So it's almost like it selects your colors for you, and then you can deal with the colors, almost like the hue versus hue curves that we were coming from, these ones. But this is just a more refined tool, and it's easier because you can easily see what you're working on, and see saturation of the reds. Okay, let's remove that. Also you can come to like your blues and push it up. You can see the blue now becoming darker, and you can increase all the blues in the shots if that's what you're going for, which you should not be going for, to be honest. So that's how this works. There's more details, but this would be in the video about color slice. You can check it out on my page. Now the next one is color wrapper, and again these are tools that you can use. They almost do the same things, to be honest. DaVinci just gives us a lot of tools. If you're complaining about one, they will create another one for you. Don't worry, like you color by force. So so this one, you can also click on the color you want to affect. So I clicked on the blue, and you can see it created the point where that color is on the color wrapper, and I can either swing it. So if I swing it manually to like purple, you can see, or I can swing it, maybe I want to push it more into the blues. At this point I'm saturating it because I'm telling it I want the color to move more saturated. If you look at my Vectorscope also, you can see my Vectorscope is moving. When you see it move towards the circle, it's getting more saturated. If I bring it down, I'm telling it to change the color. So it's the same thing so what I'm doing here, moving it down to the teal, or let's say moving into the magenta, is the same thing that we were using this tool for before, which way we'll come here, we'll do blue, and you move it down, we'll move it here. It's the same thing I just did now with the color wrapper. So it's not different. It depends on you. If this is your vibe, go for it. I use this sometimes when I feel like. Sometimes if I don't need to, I don't bother. It's quicker, but sometimes I'm a really conventional guy. I like the tools I'm used to, and I learned these tools, but if I'm not remembering to use it in a grade, I'm not going to stress myself. And I've never had a client ask me, did you use color wrapper, or did you use HSL, or did you use like magic slice? They don't care. All they care about is their shot looking good. Okay, so let's reset that. Let's move on to this one. This is also one other tool that you will use a lot. This is called the qualifier. The qualifier is one of your best friends because you can use it to, I want to say qualify, but basically you can use it to make selections and isolations. So when I click it, you get this like eyedropper, tool. Then you can hold down or maybe drag on what you want to select. So right now I want to select these red shirts. So I've selected it now. You can see in this place. If I come here to my highlight tool, which I will show you later, highlight tool and click it. What it does is it shows me my selection. I can click again to like, I want to clean it up a bit, add more points to it. If I want to add more points, I'll come here with the plus and click. So I've clicked the wrong part now, for example. I'll come to the minus and say, sorry, remove this part. It has done too much. So come back and click my red. Okay. So let's say I'm fine with this and I can come. So you can see the selection. This is my range of selection in between these points. So let me move my range. Right now, because I'm moving into the yellows, it's selecting the arm of the guy. If I don't want that, I can come here and reduce my range and bring my range just to the color I want to select, which is around here, right? I can also check the saturation, move it around and say this is the saturation of the colors I'm looking for. Then I can decide to also look for the luminance just to fine tune. I don't want the dark points. For example, the guy's shot, I don't want it. So I'm reducing that. So this is the closest I can get in this shot. Then I'll come here and add some clean blacks just to clean up the mask a bit more. Clean whites. You can see how everything is cleaned up a bit. Come to the second page, add some denoise. You can see my selection is getting cleaner. Now, if I take that off, I'm still fine. Now I can go and say, this is my selection. Now I can switch the hue. I can move the hue around. Can you see what's happening? Because I didn't select everything, or I didn't do a very good job, which I knew, but I don't care. Just showing you guys how this works. I can move my color around, or I can do other things like, let me reset this. I can also increase the brightness of that. I can decide to push colors into it. I can become silly. I can change the temperature. I can change the contrast. Okay, I'm beginning to have too much fun. But that's what this does. You can use that to select certain things and just do anything you want to do with your selection. There are other forms and modes of the qualifier, but I'm not going to go into that now because that's not why we are here. The next tool is called the power window. And you have a lot of power windows when you open it. You have like, these different shapes. The most common one is this, because you can use that to create a shape around somebody. So you kind of draw it around the person. You come and push the outer circle to soften it, or you use here to soften. And again, if you come to see your selection, click the highlight tool. You kind of see what you have selected. What this does for you is it's telling you that this thing is selected. So let's say I want to brighten that part of the shot. I can just come and brighten it. And that's what happens if you want to remove that so you don't just see it on your screen. And that's what happens, you can see. However, the way we use it sometimes is we use it for the opposite effect of what I just did. So right now, this is my selection. If I click this tool, I will create an inverse version of that selection, which is everything outside the power window, not inside. And then I can darken it. And if I remove the power window now and remove the highlight tool, my guy is bright, everything around him is dark. So let me remove that and you see the difference. See? Okay, full viewer. So see what we had before. When I do the window and I invert it and I darken the environment by bringing the offset down, this is what it became. So you might use that to like bring attention to somebody or to something in your shot. That's what that does for you. All right, and you can use other tools. Like I'm going to show you how the other versions of the tools work. So it depends on the shape you want. You can use a gradient, which is this one. And let's say we draw it this way. So for example, you can see that the edges of this shot are dark. And maybe I don't want that, right? I want to fix that. So let me see what I've selected. I've selected this edge. I can bring it down. Then I decide to like raise the gamma. Okay. Decide to raise it. Again, these are very crude ways to do it, but I'm just showing you what can happen with this tool. And what I've just done is I've erased that side of the shot. If I want to remove that, so this is before, everywhere is dark, and after. I can bring it down to blending a bit more. Oops, I went too far. So if I bring it down to blend it a bit more, realistically, something like this, before and after. Big deal, before and after. So that's how you can use that tool. There's also like there's a freehand one that you can draw, and you can basically draw around the shape as you want. But all this will be discussed in more detailed videos. Now, let's say we've drawn that power window and you have done what you wanted to do with it, which is, like I said before, let me push color into my guy. Okay. Let me make my guy a certain color. Okay, so let's say we have that color. I'm going to remove this softness so we can see that shape. So this is the shape we drew. The problem with this is this guy is not staying in one spot. So that shape that we drew on that spot will eventually be visible. So what we can do to make this shape follow our guy is when we draw it around the face, we'll come to the next tool called the tracker. You know, it's saying tracker window. So it's telling you that you can track that window. Yeah, it's saying something that you can track. You come here and click track forward and reverse. So we track forward and track back. Sometimes it acts funny. Like this point now, you started tracking, then you lost the face. So while I was editing this, I realized that I didn't tell you how to fix this problem. So if you encounter a situation where your tracking doesn't stay on the subject, all you have to do is deactivate the 3D in the tracker window and you'll be just fine. Back to the video. Just wanted to show you how that works. Let's move on to the next tool. This is a magic mask, and what it does is like how you use rotoscope in After Effects. So with the magic mask, I can come and draw on this guy. And basically what it will do is it will select this guy for me and make him a selection. So if I come and I click this highlight tool, give it some time, you can see it has drawn out this guy for me. Okay. And I can come and brighten him up. I can desaturate him if that's what I'm going for example. If I want a shot where the guy, I want the guy to be in black and white. However, you need to track it also. He has his own tracker inside there. So because if I don't track it, this is the only spot where that effect will happen. This spot where I drew it. So let me track that. And we'll see. It's actually CPU and GPU intensive. So it depends on your computer. This might drag a computer, but can you see that the effect is really cool? I didn't draw on the gloves, and that's why the gloves is not in black and white. I drew on just the guy. So you can see how good it is that it's basically just selecting the guy. See, it's really good. You can also clean up and improve it a bit more, but technically, so it's actually a very good effect that you can be creative with, and you can use it for a lot of things like exposure. You can use it to like create depth. You can decide to make what's behind it, you know, blow out. Creativity is in your hands. You have the tools. The next one is blur, sharpen, and the last one is mist. I don't use mist, but I use blur and sharpen. And like it says, blur, if you want to blur something, push it out of the way. If you want to sharpen, you go the other direction. And the same thing applies to this sharpen. If you want to sharpen, you go down. If you want to blur, you go up. I don't know why they had to repeat the effect because it's the same thing, but we move. So that's what that does. So I use some sharpen in some of my edits, just small, just very small, just to bring back some details of like the edges of my skin or stuff. Okay, so the next thing here is called key. And key is, you might not really have a need to use it, but key is something that, for example, if I have an effect that I've done, I can use key to find a balance. Like it's almost like an opacity knob. It's almost like transparency. So let's say you have a red book and you have a blue book on top of it. If you make the blue book transparent, if you reduce the key, you'll start to see some red under it, right? So that's what key is. Key is basically saying this node that I'm on, I want to reduce the transparency. You can see it's fading out. I want to make it transparent. Okay. So let me show you an example of what will happen with key. Let's come and select our red top with the qualifier and change the color to blue. We have done that effect in this place. If I come to key and I say, yeah, reduce the key a bit, I start to bring it down. You can see that I'm bringing it down. My red is showing under it. So that's everything about the key tool. That's basically what it does. It just serves like, it's like a transparency tool that, you can use to reduce the intensity of an effect as much as you want, or you can make sure it's, completely gone. All right, so I'm going to leave this part now. This is sizing, input sizing. You can use it to like, move your stuff, pan left to right, tilt. And ideally you would do this you can also do this in the editing tab. But in case you want to do something and you want to see what's under these shots, it comes in handy when you're probably like, you have a reference shot that you have put underneath and you want to be seeing it. That's when you might want to use this. But most of the time, you probably won't find yourself here at this level. Okay. Now let's move on to the scopes. Let's move on to the scopes now in DaVinci Resolve. Your scopes are here. If you can't find it, you click this and it will come up. And there are a couple of things I like to set. So I'll come here and say display qualifier focus. And then also come here in the Vectorscope, say show skin tone indicator. What this is doing is it is showing you it is going to show you where your skin tone lies in the Vectorscope. I have a dedicated video talking about scopes also, how you can read scopes, and you can always go and watch that one to get an idea of how to read scopes. So now, because I did this display qualifier focus, if I use this qualifier and I bring my mouse over any part of the shot, my Vectorscope will show me where that part of the shot is on the Vectorscope. And you can see now I'm pointing at the red and it's showing me that line that is pointing towards red. So that's where this shirt is. This is where this shirt lies on the Vectorscope, on the color wheel. The way the Vectorscope works is you read it 360. So all your colors are displayed here. So you can see how much blue you have in the shot. You can see that this shot doesn't have a lot of yellow and green. Most of the colors are around red and blues. So let me move things around and you'll see. If I move things towards the yellow, the shot looks visibly yellow, but you can also see on the Vectorscope that your shot has yellow in it. So this is why the scopes are great when you're color grading, because you can easily see what's going on. Even if your screen is not calibrated properly, with the Vectorscope you can see what's going on your screen. Okay, so with the Vectorscope you can see what's going on your skin. With the Vectorscope you can see what's going on your screen. So let me remove that. If I push towards this color, you can see that it's moving towards it's basically showing me where my entire image is sitting in the color wheel. So Vectorscope helps you to like check things like skin tone. If I put my mouse on the skin, I can see where that is on the color. You can see that it's not exactly on the skin tone line. This is called the skin tone line. And you can see more about this in my tutorial about scopes. Now let's move on to Parade. Parade also is a different type of scope that you can use to like read your image. And I've explained this in the video dedicated to this. You have Waveform, you've got the histogram. I don't really use the histogram. You've got the chromaticity. And this just shows you all your colors and in all the color wrappers that it's involved in. You don't need to bother about this. This might stress your brain at this level. So let's move on. The major ones I use are Parade, Waveform, and Vectorscope. If you want to know more about some of these things I've talked about, please check my channel. I've got like a playlist explaining scopes, the curves, the primary tools, the primary wheels, the HSL, and basically everything I've talked about in this video. I've taken time to make videos dedicated to them so you can get in depth with them and learn how to use them properly. Let's move on to the upper part of DaVinci Resolve, which is like very easy to really understand. I'm going to start from here. Here you've got the gallery, and what you have here is something called your gallery pane. Here you kind of have the screenshots that I've created, and these are called stills. So stills are like screenshots. They are screenshots that contain color information or information about your shots. So for example, if I right click this and I say grab still, this image is created for me. It looks like a screenshot. It is a screenshot. However, it contains these nodes that I have created. So if I delete that, for example, let me reset all the nodes, and I say grab still, you can see that the still it grabbed does not have any color. Okay, and right now if I right click this and I say displayed node graph, which is like show me the thing inside the screenshots, technically called a still. It shows that it's just one node that is inside there and it's not colored. If I come here, however, and I check and I say display node graph, you will see the things that are inside there. And right now I don't have a color on this shot. I can come here, right click and say apply grade, and it would copy all the elements and properties inside here into my clip. So this is how you can transfer color grades from one shot to the next. So if you have like 1,000 shots on your timeline, after you've graded one of the shots and it's the same shot, maybe you've just cut it in different points. So you can create a still, like just the way I did, like grab a still, and you can select all your other shots and say apply grade. So that's it. And that will copy the grades from your still shots into the entire clips and on your timeline. So that makes your life easy, right? That is how this works. And if you click here, there are two types of categories. There's stills, there's PowerGrade. PowerGrades are like your library where you can put some of these stills inside and you can use it for other projects. If you do just stills and you do it inside the stills place, it would stay in this particular project's library. But when you open a different project, let me open a different project so you can see. So right now you can see that it's here. It's not in the PowerGrade. If I come and I open a different project, which is, for example, this one, you can see that it's not there. What is there is this one, is this stills that I've created from this separate project, which I can also apply grade. I can tell it to apply the grade from this project into my film. So what I can see is stills that I've created on this project. I can't see the stills from the other shots. However, in this project, if I want to take things from other places and I come to PowerGrade, I can steal things, looks from other shots I've created. These are like horrible examples I created just to teach in the past. So I can right click and say apply grade. And you can see how much of a node tree it has applied. This was from another music video I graded entirely that has been copied into this place. And that's because it's in PowerGrade. So how do I make a still I created there show in the PowerGrade? It's very simple. All I have to do is drag it into the PowerGrade. And then I have it in the PowerGrade. If I don't want to drag it, I can also do it by making sure I'm in the PowerGrade window, and I will grab the still there. So it creates into the PowerGrade. So what that means is I can use this particular look that I've created for this one shot. I can use it for as long as I want on other projects. It's going to be on my computer for as long as I want it until I decide to delete it. That is the difference between stills and PowerGrades. And there's timeline, which is just a timeline showing everything you have in your timeline. All right, the next thing is LUTs, which are called Luts. And these are pre-installed on your computer. You've got the ones from Red, Sony, Olympus, Film Looks, which are the popular ones that you kind of use from the film look that people use, Kodak 2383. If I use this and I can drag that on a shot, you can see what it has done. I can also drag and drop it here. And you can see already I've got like a film look going on. It looks horrible now again because, and let me give you an example of what the key would do. So let's say this is too much. I like the color, but I feel like it's too intense. I can come here and take it down with the key. Okay. I take it down with the key and see what we have now. And this can be a look that I want to go for. If I disable it, this is what it is. So what that did, like I said, what the key tool does is it just gives you like a transparency tool. If I remove the key now and I reset it, take it back to 100, this is what it looks like. Very intense, but with the key output I can bring it down. Just basically I want the effect, but I don't want too much. So this is how you can also, like, for most of you that like to use like Luts, and you just apply it and you feel like, oh, my shot is horrible, you can reduce the output of your Lut and you can keep the color information but reduce the contrast, just make it a bit milder. That's what that does. So this is LUTs. You have a lot of LUTs that you can use here. If you bought any LUTs, you can easily use that and you will be fine. Okay, good. This is the Arri log C to 709. This is what will convert this shot to Rec 709. This is what we would ideally start with before we start color grading. You convert the shots to Rec 709 like this. Then you now start pushing it and adding contrast and everything else. So that's not what we're doing here. We're not teaching color management now. We're just showing you the interface. Media pool is all your clips, everything you've put in your timeline. I'm not teaching you about editing here, so I'm not going to talk much about it. This would toggle on and off. It would toggle on and off your clips that are on the timeline. Sometimes I like to take it off when I'm grading. When I want to go to the next shot, I'll toggle it on so I can see what's next. In this case, let me cut this shot and show you. Yeah. So I just cut that shot into 3. You can see now it's showing like 3 clips. Okay. So let's say we apply this look to this one, like I was saying before. Now I want to copy the look to this remaining 2. I'll select both of them and then right click. I can right click here and say apply grade, or I can come right click the still and say apply grade, and it will do the same thing for me. All right, that's what clips you do with clips. Here you can, if you have many timelines open, you can use that. This tool, like I said, is like a highlights tool. So it basically shows you, if you're working on something, it shows you what you're working on. So let's say you made a selection of this red, the highlight tool will show you, or maybe you draw a power window around something and you want to see what you have done. This will show you, right? Okay, let's move on. Trying to make sure that we don't stay too long on things that things are easy to like figure out. This is bypass. This will bypass all your grades, bypass everything here. However, if you want to do individual bypass, on each of the nodes, let's say you have done something here, and let's say the next one, let's just push one ugly color into it, right? Let's say this is the look you're going for. I just pushed my highlights into the warm tones. Okay, so what you can do is to say, if I want to bypass everything and take it back to original, just to preview, I'll click this and it will bypass everything, right? Everything is bypassed right now. Now, if I just want to bypass one, maybe I want to see what happens without the saturation, I'll come and click the number of the node. And you can see now that this node is, if I remove this one too, the only thing showing now is this one that is on top of it. So if I want to bring it back, do the same thing, click it. If I want to disable this one, basically that is how you can disable and enable. If you click this, your stuff will become full screen, so you can have more space. If you want to see stuff back, you click any of these things. This is your control. This is for you to move this around if you need to. Then here you see clip, you see timeline. Timeline, anything you do here, if you add a node here, anything you do here will affect everything on your timeline, meaning that if you have 1 million shots, any effect you do here would affect the 1 million shots basically. Okay, so let's remove that and move on. But when you do anything in the clip level, it affects just the clip. So right now, what we have done has affected just this clip. These ones are fine. But if I go into timeline and let me say I add a node and I add blue to all the shots, right? You can see that this one clip now has blue because it's on timeline. This other one has blue. This would also have blue in it because it's affected by the timeline, even though I have like its own color on the clip level. I hope that is clear and I hope you understand that. Okay, we're going to move on now. We're almost done. Here we have quick exports. Here is timeline view. If you want to see a timeline, you click that, you toggle it off if you don't want to. Here you have nodes. So the way DaVinci works is it works based on nodes. You kind of build, it's like building blocks. Maybe block 1 you put foundation. Block 2 you put some metal inside it to like soften it. Block 3 you want to put painting. So think about it that way. You build your look from, contrast, from exposure You balance your exposure, make sure things are bright and dark enough as much as you want. You want to do the contrast. What's the difference between your bright point and your dark point? Then from there, maybe you go into saturation. Maybe you want it less saturated or you want it very saturated. Depends on you. Then you want to go to white balance. Is it too warm? Do you want it to make sure that everything is balanced? You want your whites to be white. Then from there, you now branch out. So everything you're doing them on nodes. You're doing them on layers. So it's like you're stacking things up, right? And that's the way DaVinci works. And there are different type of nodes. So it's almost like there are different type of layers. There's a serial, there's parallel, there's mixer, there's a whole lot of nodes, and I'm not be showing you a lot of them today, but just to quickly say, serial before, parallel, layer, and outside. If you do serial, these are like individual 1, 1, 1. If you go to parallel, you kind of stack things up this way. And there's a reason why you might want to do that. There's one that looks like it, but doesn't act like it. It's called layer node. See, it looks the same way, but it's not the same. It acts differently. And I will explain that, also. And there are other ones that like outside node. So it kind of gives an opposite of whatever you do here. But all the things are things that I've talked about in the video dedicated to nodes. Here you have effects, and the effects that are here are the effects that are built into DaVinci Resolve. You've got a lot of things here. You've got blur, you've got color compressors, just a lot of effects that really make DaVinci shine. There's elevation, there's grain, there's glow, and all of the things that you'll be using to really create your looks and to build your color grade. There's a lot. There's sky replacement. DaVinci has like arguably one of the best effects in most softwares, and I'm not even playing. I've used Final Cut, I've used Premiere Pro to grade. There's nothing that matches DaVinci Resolve when it comes to effects. So that's that. Then there's a Lightbox. This Lightbox shows you all your clips in this gallery kind of form. So it kind of shows you. So when you're done grading, you can come here and kind of just look at your shots. It's almost like looking at it on the board. Just gives you an idea of what's working and what's not working. Like I can accurately see that these shots don't match, and I can jump here and go and do more to try to match it. So let's say I thought I've matched it, and I come to Lightbox and I see obviously that this one is too red, this one is greenish yellow. I can jump back and just fix that, and then come back to Lightbox and just make sure that everything looks cohesive and everything flows. And that's it. That's basically everything about DaVinci Resolve. I feel like this has taken like 2 hours to explain because I took my time. However, I hope this was impactful, and this just shows you that the entire software is not difficult. It's quite easy to follow. Okay, let's be honest, that took a while, and I think I got carried away teaching you and trying to show you almost everything in DaVinci Resolve. This is one of the softwares that Hollywood filmmakers used to color, so there's no excuse, there's no reason why you can't make your work look as good. If you've stayed this long, you're a star, and you're determined to take your color grading to the next level. I sincerely hope that you're more confident now to download the software and give it a shot. What are you struggling with presently in your color grade? What are the things that feels like an obstacle to you? Let's talk about it, because I like to hang out in the comment section. I really hope to see you in the next video, but until then, take care of yourself and don't stop coloring. Bye.